Hello, my name's Diana Berman and I've been a teacher of the deaf for over 40 years. And I'm here to explain our writing analysis and the resources we've made to help deaf children improve their literacy. If you look at the National Curriculum Level 1 of the writing assessment and you compare it to, for instance, this particular child's writing, who is an 11-year-old, the national curriculum states that pupils' writing must communicate meaning through simple words and phrases. If you look at the child's work, it says, I went to see my dad, I bring doll and Willie, which was her buoyancy aid, and spade. To a teacher of the deaf, that conveys a lot of meaning. On the writing assessment level, it doesn't tell us what the child already knows, nor does it give us what the child next needs to learn, and therefore it doesn't help teachers know the progression in teaching. So that was our aim in setting out to improve deaf children's literacy. So our aim was to improve deaf children's literacy, and we created a structure from which we could analyse, assess deaf children's writing. And this is all going to show how we did it, the measurements we created, how to use the analytic writing assessment, the resources we created to meet that need, and the results of the intervention study. Routes to literacy. There's the phonological path, which hearing children follow, and a lot of deaf children do, and it's most important in relating the unit of sound with the corresponding written letter. Some deaf children find this very difficult because they are not receiving clear phonological input. Therefore, if they can look also at the morphological route, which is also helpful for hearing children, then it can help them learn English grammar and spelling. The reason is, if we take the word books, books has two morphemes, the word book and the S on the end, which tells us that there's more than one. So there are two morphemes in the word books. If we look at the word magician and think how to spell it, it can be very difficult because it doesn't sound as it's spelt. But if you look at the morphemes, it's magic and then IAN, which is the ending for people words like electric, electrician, magic, magician, vegetarian, librarian, it goes on. That will help children realise if it's got IAN on the end of a noun, they know that's the person connected to it. Likewise with verbs, if we add ER to a word like read, reader, dance, dancer, play, player, clean, cleaner, and so on, it's the person connected with that verb. So it helps them understand English, especially in reading. It also helps children break long words into smaller chunks which they can have meaning. If you take the word unbreakable, they can work it out through the highlighted pieces that are visual codes. And Beach and Harris reckon that deaf children use more visual coding than hearing children, which isn't surprising. But children need to be taught to read the words, to look for these clues. And that's what our resources teach them. In a study that was funded by the Nuffield Foundation, we asked 257 Key Stage 2 deaf children to write from the same stimulus. We then taught morphology to a group of them, and the other children had normal literacy teaching. We then tested them again with the same assessments that we've just seen a list of, after about 6 months. And the improvement was really encouraging. And I've got 2 examples here, and of course they're good ones. This is the same child in October on the pre-test, and he's written, the man saw bag, made playing, holiday, holiday, went were down. In April, at the post-test, having worked with our resources, he wrote, the dad is putting clothes in the bag. Whoopee. Because it shows our resources had had an effect, the teaching had had an effect. The word putting is underlined because the child asked for the spelling. The writing assessment is not a spelling assessment, so the child can ask for spellings. Children will only be able to write the word order that is in their head. If they haven't got English grammar in their head, it's not suddenly going to come out of the pen at the other end of the arm. So with our resources, we stress that the teaching has to go alongside communication in English word order, so the child understands that that is the aim. So if we talk through the resources and get them to interact and ask questions and respond in English, that is going to help them with English literacy. This is a graph just to show how well the intervention children did on the left-hand side compared to the control. And it's controlled for age, IQ and pre-test scores. So we could conclude that the results show that teaching deaf children about morphemes had a significant effect on deaf children's writing. It also had a significant effect on the suffix spelling of English words and on their reading comprehension, which one would reckon would go alongside, and it did. The 257 children who were happy to take part in our study were all asked to write about a sequence, 4-picture sequence story. The way we asked the teachers to test it was to show their class or the child, depending on what situation they were in, all 4 pictures, give the child time to look at it, and then fold it up and say, what was it about? And mostly they say, holiday, car, whatever. So from then on in, we asked the teachers to discuss and say, right, give the people names. So who is this? Who's this? Do you think it's mum, dad? Maybe it's a friend. What's the name? Sam. Lovely, no problem. Use it. What's he doing? Well, he's packing clothes. Yes, why? Going on holiday. Where's he going? Oh, he's going to Spain. You went to Spain, didn't you? What was it like? Hot, cold? What do you think? And talk them through. Also, very much, if an incident happens, as it does in picture 3 here, ask them to say, what do you think that they were talking about? What do you think they said? Oh, bother, lost the socks, or whatever. Because on our analysis on the writing sheet, we ask if the children have used punctuation, if they've used speech, if they've put in extra material from their own heads about where they went or what the weather was like, and etc., to make it into a story. We received 257 writing scripts back. They arrived on the desk. Where do you start to know how to analyse them? Jolly hard, because existing writing assessments tend not to start at a level that we required. They start higher up, because usually writing is done by children whose first language is English, and by the age of 5, 6, and these children were 10, 11, they know the language, therefore they know what they're writing. A lot of these children did not. So with the scripts, I read the first one, put it down, picked up the next. Was it better or worse than the one I just put down, or same? By doing this with all of them, we ended up with 8 levels. But then we looked at what can the children do in each level. This was level 1, 5% of the children. And we reckoned that it demonstrates an ability to write English in alphabetic letters in a sequence that doesn't necessarily form legal English words. But they were beginning to include spaces between letters to resemble English words. Level 2, 13, nearly 14%. The words underlined denote that the child had asked for spelling. Some of those children did not know fingerspelling and their matching orthography for what letter to write. So then we wrote it on a piece of paper, and teachers were asked specifically to place that, the one they had written on, perpendicular to the child. So the child's first task was to know which way up to place the writing in order to copyright. What did we reckon level 2 could do? It demonstrates an ability to spell some English words which may or may not be relevant to the situation. Recognise which way up to place words in order to copyright, and some of them had memorised some finger spelling and their corresponding written letter. Level 3 demonstrates an ability to write a sequence of relevant words with some irrelevant words that begin to form a noun-verb sequence either in British Sign Language or in English. For example, we had the man saw bag, maid playing holiday. Begin to include prepositions and pronouns. He put the case in the car, because a lot of deaf children would just write dad, pack case, dad put it to the car, dad drove car, and we want them to include pronouns. And occasionally this level demonstrated, but not systematically, they could include the definite or indefinite article of the and an. Level 4, about 14%. Level 4 demonstrates an ability to write English words in BSL or emergent English word order, use noun phrases and subject-verb word order, include prepositions, verbs, pronouns, adjectives and connectives, and the definite, indefinite articles, include story ideas, and include some appropriate punctuation. Level 5 demonstrates an ability to use emergent English word order, include verb tenses, not necessarily accurately, and include information to create a story. Level 6 demonstrates an ability to write English comprehensibly, albeit with grammatical errors, to include some capital letters and full stops, and engage the reader in an emergent story. Level 7 demonstrates an ability to use some English story phraseology, like one sunny day, include location information, and include correct punctuation. Level 8, only nearly 2%. And if you read it, it was a beautiful day, Richard excited. Richard and his girlfriend, and so on, for the first picture. And in the second picture, you would hardly know it was a hearing-impaired child, until you come to the words Richard girlfriend, so it should have been Richard's girlfriend, noticed there was a flat wheel on the car. And we tend to say a flat tyre on the car. However, what does it demonstrate an ability to do for level 8? Write the majority of text in grammatical English, include correct usage of reported speech, include colloquial language and subordinate clauses, sequence events to extend ideas logically, describe emotions of characters, and use a variety of connectives. So from that, we created an analytical design. And it was to create an assessment sheet for teachers. And we analysed all those points and put them into aspects of grammar or story development. These were the aspects of grammar: syntactic and morphological dimension. And these are the story development, the text quality. We then created this sheet so that it's just double-sided A4 and hopefully easy to complete.